Hi and welcome to Music and Gear. We have our second Telecaster to review, and this one is by Firefly. The box does have a little bit of damage. We have a spot right here, but the tape is intact. But it's not horrible. One spot right here as far as shipping. And it took 5 days from the time of ordering to where it actually came. Let's take our knife. Let's open it up. And typical with the Firefly, piece of styrofoam on the top. And for the first time, I see the styrofoam carton has a crack. It's the first Firefly that I've actually seen the styrofoam have some damage. The guitar in the styrofoam coffin, there's a little bit of movement, but again, very well packaged. And in here we have a goodie bag. Looks like we've got a truss rod tool, one Allen wrench, and of course the Radio Shack cord. And here we can see the damage to the carton. But that's what it's there for. And you have a rubber band at the top. And this is the other packing material. It is not the bubble wrap that we saw in the last Telecaster we reviewed. It's a very pretty blue. And it does have a roasted maple neck. So if you're familiar with the channel, you know what we're about to do. We're going to check every aspect of this guitar, go over the fit and finish, and all the factory setups, and also do a little demo at the end. Okay, I now have the guitar up on our bench, and we're going to look over the fit and finish on the guitar, see how well it was finished from the factory, see how well it was constructed, and how the components actually align to the other components on the guitar, like the pick guard to the body, the ashtray bridge to the pick guard, and so forth. So we're going to start out looking at the body. It strays a little bit from a traditional Tele. They have put an arm carve right here. And on the back, they put a belly carve and a little carve here for your hand. They've also chamfered the neck spot right here. This is angled in to make it a little easier to hold the guitar. And it is easy to hold in this direction, the way they've done the back part of this connection here. On the very top of the guitar, looking at the finish in the light, we're looking for seams in the body, because I'm sure that this is a multi-piece body. And I'm not seeing anything in the light that shows that there's something strange going on. It looks nice and flat. I don't see any blemishes in the finish. So the top of the guitar looks nice. the edge where the top of the body hits the side of the guitar, it looks like they've used about a 3/8 inch round over. and it goes from the neck all the way around to where the arm carve is. And starting right here, this radius, this round over, gets a little smaller. At the very edge of the arm carve here, I'm going to say it's probably a 1/8 inch round over. And they've eased from the 1/8 to about the 3/8 inch round over. And then it does the same thing right here. It starts to increase the size and then goes back to the same round over all the way around up to the neck. The pick guard is sitting flat and true to the body, and it is closely following the body. There is a little bit of difference here that I see, where I see a little bit more blue, and then right here as well, where it doesn't quite follow the body line. But it's not bad. But it doesn't perfectly align to the outside body line. The offset does change. The spot where the electronics cover is, this is a nice fit right here. And the screws seem to be setting flush and even. This one is askewed just a little bit where it's not set perpendicular to the body. So this one screw right here. The main plate looks like it's attached well. There's no deflection. I don't feel any sharp edges on the plate, and the screws are down even and tight. They look to be okay. And the screws on the switch are also down tight to the top plate. The two knobs have a heavy knurling. It's pretty heavy. There's a lot of grip to the knobs. The pot feel, unlike most Fireflies, this knob feels very smooth, but it doesn't have as much friction behind it. It's a smoother moving or freer moving pot than I've seen on most Firefly guitars. Usually their pots are very stiff. This one's much freer than what they've been using. The tone knob, it's nice and smooth as well, and it has less friction than the standard Firefly pot. So they're obviously using a different pot in this guitar. They feel nice. Our ashtray bridge, sometimes you'll get a burr on the bridge. This bridge feels smooth to the touch, smooth to my fingers. And we'll put our wrist across the saddles here. Not feeling anything sharp. It's not super smooth, but it's not sharp. I think the main thing I'm feeling is the strings themselves going over the saddles. These are brass saddles, but they are not the compensated saddle. So these are just standard brass saddles that are not compensated for a telly. The string goes through the bottom of the guitar, through the ashtray bridge, and then over the saddle to the nut, just like any typical telly. The screws that hold the saddle are on an angle, and sometimes they'll protrude up past the strings, and in this case they're well below the strings, so I don't think you would ever have an issue with the intonation screws. It's nicely done. The pickup looks like it's setting flat and true in the ashtray bridge, so I don't see an issue there. And the neck pickup does have a slight skew this direction. It is leaning towards the neck just a little bit. But the pick guard is cut to that pickup really well. Our route here for our truss rod adjustment, or spoke wheel, looks good. It does appear that the spoke wheel is rubbing the pick guard, that there's no clearance there, so when we turn that, we'll have to see if it's actually rubbing the pick guard and it's going to cause an issue. Looking at our neck pocket, the neck fitting to the guitar on this side, this is tight. There's no gap where it looks like they've adjusted the neck one way or the other. It's nice and tight here. And on this side, it's tight as well. There's no gap. And this comes to a pretty sharp point here. That's hard to do. And there's no tear out. There's a slight round over from the top edge where it goes 90 to the base of the guitar and the neck. And it does the same thing on this side. It's 90 degrees and then rounds over. The joint here is tight, and the joint across here is tight. So again, if there's a shim in there, it's going to be a small one, because it appears to be setting tight to the body. That doesn't mean that there's not a shim in there. They can put just a thin piece of paper in this location, can make big differences up here. It can make a 32nd of an inch difference in the set up here, even adding a piece of paper in there. But it appears to be nice. On the back of the guitar, the plate, these screws feel nice. There's no sharp edges, because that's where you're putting your hand, right there. So everything here feels nice and smooth. I'm not feeling anything sharp. They've added a carve here, which I don't really understand, because your arm is never in this position anyway. So when you're playing the guitar, you're always here, which is straight. So I think this carve here is more of an aesthetics thing. I don't really see that it does much as far as increasing your access to the upper notes. But it's nicely done. And it's the exact same round over that they have on the top of the guitar. And unlike the top, the 3/8 round over does continue in this carve here. So it looks like they've used about the same round over and same radius all the way across this edge. And it feels smooth. I don't feel any missteps in the machining. Feels nice. We have some ferrules here. These 3 ferrules are exactly the same. Then the outside ferrules look to be the same, and this one's set high. So they are not all set even. There looks like there's about 3 different heights going on. These 3 are in the body further, and these stick out a little more, and this one's the oddball. So pretty easy fix. You don't have to, if this is a urethane finish, you can tap these down to get those even, but from the factory they are not even. Our strap buttons look to be a decent size. They're not small. It is setting tight and true to the body. Our other strap button, it's centered. It's tight to the body. Setting true. And they've Changed the jack on this guitar. I like these jacks better. With the 2 screws that go back into the body, like it's a much cleaner look. I like that jack. The screws in the jack are setting, I don't know if you can see that. They're not, if you draw a center line through the body right here, the screws do not align to that. It's off a little bit. Our neck, and I felt this earlier, there's something going on with the neck. It's not smooth. It has some rough spots on it, especially right here. And that is in the finishing from when the finish was applied to the guitar. Most likely it was drying in the air, or they had particulate in the air and it settled in it. But I'm not seeing any dust. That feels more like the itemization on the gun and it was drying. It's not smooth. I feel the texture. And there's a couple spots right here. I feel texture. And there's a little bit right there as well. The bottom of the neck is smooth in spots. And right here, there's something going on. It's not as gritty feeling as here, but you can feel the difference in the smoothness. There's a spot right there. On the top of the neck, again, this shoulder, it has a grip feel to it. It's not smooth. I feel something peculiar going on with the neck right across here, the way it was sanded. It could have been someone's first day and this was their first neck that they sanded. But the edge right here rolls like that here, and then up here it's more even as far as the way it rolls up to the fingerboard. It's almost like they sanded too much right here and they left an edge. And I can see it looking down the guitar as well. There's a funny sanding spot right here. Looks like they cut into the neck just a little bit and it comes up a 32nd right here when I look down it. It's not perfectly straight. It has a little bit of a jiggle to it. I don't know if that'll show in the camera or not. On the bottom side of the neck, it's better, but it's not great. So that's the side of our neck. Let's check our transition here to our headstock. All this feels really smooth. This is how the neck should feel right here. And right here we start to get that grip feel again. And along through here. It's not perfectly smooth. It's not consistent. If the whole neck was like this, I'd say, okay, that's the way they wanted it. But right here, it's very smooth. And you can feel the difference. All these edges here, it's just not a consistent, it's not a consistent feel. The top of the headstock is not as smooth as it is here. Our nut, it feels to be well done. It is flush on both sides. Not feeling anything peculiar there. And our fret feel, there are no sharp frets. These are the ball end frets, so they're very smooth to the touch. But looking at the frets, they don't look good. There's marking on the top of the frets, almost like a tarnish. I'm not really sure if that's discolorization. Some of them look okay, but most of them look like they're discolored. Almost like they're tarnishing. The strings look really bad on the guitar. They're worse than normal for Firefly. They're almost black in spots. Normally on Firefly they are shipped with really awful strings. This set of strings is worse than normal. And it could be the strings have left that debris. I don't know. The fret polishing on top is not done as well as I've seen on other Firefly guitars. There's definitely something going on with the top of the frets. And they could clean up very easily with a fret eraser, but out of the box, they look tarnished. Our tuning keys, these are locking tuning keys from the factory. And I have not tuned the guitar yet. It is out of the box, out of tune. So let's just tune our E here back and forth. The tuner feels smooth. Let's try our A. Doesn't feel bad. When I tune the instrument, I'll report back on how well they all feel. But these two feel okay. We do have two standard string trees on the neck. And that just about covers the factory fit and finish. So what we're going to do now, we're going to start going into the specifications of the guitar. We're going to check our first fretted note, our factory intonation. I'm going to check the radius of the neck. And let's open up the electronics and see how well the soldering was done. Okay, we have our guitar up. And I have my 12-inch radius gauge. And we're going to check the bass. I don't really know what the neck is. And 12 seems to be pretty common. And at the base, I see a little bit of a crack in the center of the gauge. Let's check our top. So up at the top, yep, there's a little bit of a crack in the center at the top as well. So here we have our 14-inch radius gauge. Well, let's see if it's a 14. And down here, that looks nice. So it's definitely a 14 at the bottom. And up at the top, yes, it's a 14 at the top as well. So there is no compound radius on the neck. It's 14 at the top and 14 at the base. Now let's check the weight of the instrument. Okay, I have our scale. We're going to put our guitar on the scale. And it looks like we're at 3,320 grams. And in pounds, looks like we're at 7 pounds, 3 ounces, 3.5 ounces. 7 pounds, 3.5 ounces. Okay, we have our guitar up on the bench. What we're going to do now, we're going to take our gauge, we're going to check the factory relief on the neck. And I'm going to say it's 25.5, and this is my 25.5 side. And that's what it is. So let's set the guitar up and see what we got. And this neck is almost perfectly straight. I'm going to say it's 0.1 millimeters of relief. I barely see light right here. And the only reason I can see that light is there is a GVM LED light behind the camera. I do barely see a little light though. So we're going to call that like 0.1. It's pretty much perfectly straight. So we're going to take our StewMac gauge, and I'm going to be very careful. We're going to check our factory string height on the 12th. And on the 12th, we were setting at 0.090 on the low E. The high E, oh, I take that back, I was in the wrong spot. On the 12th, we were at 0.080 on the low E. And the high E is set to 0.070. So it's a little high for a factory setup, but that's how it was sent to me. That is the factory setup. So now we're going to go through and we're going to check all our frets. As usual, I'm going to go into squirrel mode. And I'll go out of squirrel mode if I find a bad fret. And right there, you got a little bit of a rock. And right there, and we're good. And right there, a little bit of a rock. And right there, ever so slightly. And right there. Now that one is rocking quite a bit. And a little bit right there. Right there. And right there. So pretty much this whole fret right here. Then we had 2 spots somewhere here in the center. And then this upper fret in 3 spots. These two spots aren't horrible. This one down here, there's quite a bit of rock. Yeah, this one's definitely high. This one's high enough to where if you slammed the action, it would probably give you a buzz. These two spots up here, it would be kind of hit and miss. The neck is very straight as well, so the relief is definitely not causing it. Okay, I think it's time to look at the electronics and see how well the soldering was done in this guitar. And I do see some full-size pots. And they read P24K series. And I'm looking at the solder joint right here. This is a double stack. They did the first bond with this wire and then tacked this one on, and I do see the wire outside of the puddle. They have bent this over, and you can see that this arm is just barely making contact to this puddle, to this tab. So it didn't quite get bent over far enough and actually touch the side of the pot. It is only touching the puddle. This joint here, they fished the wire through and then around and then did the bond. That one doesn't look too bad. Very skimpy on the solder. I don't know if you all can see that or not, but there is very little solder on these joints. This one is good. This one was at temperature. That's a good bond. This was at temperature as well. They just not a lot of solder there. Both of these are good bonds as well. Both of these joints. They look nice. So we got 4 joints here on this pot that look good. These two, it look like they're at temperature, just not a lot of solder. This is a stack joint. This is not very good, where they bent this up on the volume. Our switch, these look okay. Again, a very minimum amount of solder. This is a nice joint here. That has a nice sheen to it. Looking at our other side, you can see here that is really small. You like to see a little bit more than that. These joints here look good. This really should have been a little bigger. It may never, ever cause a problem, but that's very minimum. Okay, let's look at our jack. There's our jack. And that joint on the red, I see all kinds of wire frays right there. I don't know if you all can see that or not. And it's not horrible. This is not the typical Firefly jack that I've seen in the previous reviews. This almost looks like the same jack that Harley Benton is using with the black plastic. So all in all, in the electronics, the soldering is so-so. Okay, I now have the multimeter plugged into the guitar. We are in the bridge position, and we're reading 7.43. And in the center position, we're reading 3.69. And in the neck position, we are reading 7.10. Okay, I have the guitar plugged into my Robertson strobe tuner, and we're going to check the factory intonation and how well they cut the nut. Let's see what our first fretted notes are. We're going to start on the low E. There's our low E. Low E on the 12th. That's pretty good. Open. And first fretted note. Looks like our F is just a little sharp. There's our A. A on the 12th. Open. 12th. That's very good. Open. And our first fretted note. Our A sharp is just a little sharp. And there's our D. D on the 12th. Open. 12th. Open. Open. 12th. That's pretty good as well. Open. And our first fretted note. The D sharp is a little sharp. There's our G. G on the 12th. Open. 12th. Just a fraction sharp. Open. First fretted note, G sharp. Just on the sharp side. There's our B. B on the 12th. Open. That's pretty good. Open. And our first fretted note on the B. And our C is just a fraction high. Our high E. High E on the 12th. Looks like it's a little flat. Yes, it's a little flat. Open. high E first fretted note, and just a fraction sharp. All in all, the factory setup on this guitar is really good, and the nut cut is actually really good too on that first fretted note. This is, in my opinion, above average for a factory setup. Okay, I now have the guitar plugged into my Silverline Blackstar solid state amp. It has a built-in digital signal processor. I believe it's a good amplifier to show off this guitar. It's not an extremely expensive amplifier. It's a reasonably priced amplifier that anyone can get. Budget amplifier, budget guitar. We are in our bridge position. I have the volume all the way up. We're going to turn our tone all the way up. And I am in the clean channel. And I do have delay and reverb on the Silverline. We're going to stay in the bridge position, but on a telly it's usually kind of bright with the tone all the way up, so we're going to roll our tone back a little bit. A lot of telly players do that. We're actually going to roll our volume back just maybe 10 degrees. I'm going to go to our center position, turn our volume all the way up. We're going to turn our tone all the way up. So this is everything at maximum. We're going to go up to our neck position. We still have everything all the way up. Okay, we're back down to our bridge position. I'm going to roll my volume back 10 degrees. I'm going to do about 20 degrees on the tone. Going to go to our center position, going to roll the tone all the way up and leave the volume where it was. Now I'm going to turn the volume all the way up and use the neck position. Back to our bridge position, going to roll our tone back about 20-25 degrees. Go to our center position. Alright, now we're going to add a little crunch by adding the Ibanez tube screener. I'm going to roll our tone back about 30 degrees. Go to our center position. Go up to our neck position. turn the tube screamer off, and we're going to go up to the crunch channel on the amp. Back down to our bridge position. I'm going to roll the tone back about 10 degrees. Exact same thing, going to roll the tone back about 30 degrees. Alright, rolling the tone back all the way up, going to our center position. Roll our tone back a little bit more, 25, 30 degrees. Up to our neck position, tones all the way up. Switch the amp over to the overdrive 1 position. Everything's exactly the same. We're going to start out in our bridge position. We're going to roll our tone back about 20 degrees. Now we're going to go to our center position. Now we're going up to our neck position. Now I'm going back to my warm position, clean channel, center position. We're going to roll our tone back about 20%. Okay, what are my final thoughts on this Firefly FFTL? This guitar really has a lot of sounds. Our last Telecaster that we reviewed, I struggled getting tones out of that guitar. This guitar, very easy to get some tones out of. Some really nice clean sounds, good crunchy sounds, and it actually does really well with the high gain stuff. It's kind of very impressive. It plays extremely well. There's no dead notes. It's actually extremely versatile for a Tele. After playing around with the tuning keys, these tuning keys seem to be really nice. I didn't detect any slop in them. The guitar held tune all the way through. That whole demo, I didn't tune one time. The guitar is still in tune after all that, and I edited out maybe 30% that you guys didn't see. So that's actually pretty good. The areas that we found that were issues, they're not really issues. There is a slight blemish on the back of the guitar. It's really not that bad. You only see it in the light. And right now, I don't even see it. It's just a little tiny spot. These furls aren't perfectly even. And there's some rough spots in the neck. And I'm gonna venture out to say that maybe this neck didn't get the final polishing. It's very peculiar. It's rough feeling here and it's smooth here. I really don't know what transpired there. It's not a hard repair. It comes down to when you get a guitar out of the box, that's something that should actually be done. You shouldn't have to take steel wool to the back of the neck. Does it affect the playing? No. Do you play and really feel that right there? The whole time I played it, I really didn't notice it. But it is there. The frets, like I said, they have some discolorization in them. But after playing the guitar, they have cleaned up a little bit. So I'm going to say it's just these really awful strings that Firefly uses, and that residue got on top of the frets and discolored them. They already look much better just from playing it. I really like the guitar, and for I think $169, it was under $200 shipped to my house. That's extremely hard to beat. If you're looking for this type of instrument and that Tele sound and you want something that's not going to lock into a box, this is probably a really good instrument. And I'm going to say that it is the better instrument over the Harley Benton, simply because of the pickups. It's easier to get different sounds out of this guitar. The pickups seem to do much better with a much broader range of music styles. Anyway, if you've bought one of these guitars and you've had a completely different experience with it, leave some comments down below. What do you think of the guitar? And as always, leave some comments. Do you like these highly detailed videos? I had some comments last time that I didn't play guitar enough. So this time, add a little bit more guitar. Also had some comments on getting some measurements on the neck. I did not do that this time. I don't have any gauges to tell you what the neck is. I can tell you this neck is thinner than the Harley Benton. It's more my style neck. It's not super thin, but it is definitely not a chunky neck. It is on the thinner side. That is something that I'll probably be adding to the reviews, giving a profile shape and miking the thickness of the necks. I do hear you guys when you leave comments. Anyway, if you would, please smash the like button, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. Anyway, thank you for clicking on the video.